The chamber was vast, darker than any human had ever seen. The walls glimmered faintly, as if made from liquid shadows, and high above, lights flickered like distant stars. The air smelled metallic, sharp, and filled with the hum of energy that vibrated through the floor. Every creature in the chamber was taller than a man, some with limbs that bent in impossible ways, others with eyes that glowed like coals. At the center, the alien queen's throne rose like a black mountain, her presence radiating authority and menace in a way that made even her own generals bow their heads. Humanity had expected this moment for years. Messages had been sent, negotiations attempted, fleets observed, but the aliens had no patience for diplomacy. Worlds had fallen under their control, their inhabitants crushed or enslaved. And yet, here was a single human, standing before the queen herself, a man of average height, wearing nothing more threatening than a simple uniform. His face calm, and his hands at his sides. He did not tremble, did not sweat, did not even flinch. The queen's many eyes narrowed. "You are human," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber in a deep resonance that seemed to vibrate the very air. "You have seen the might of my empire.
You have watched your worlds crumble under our fleets, and still you stand before me without fear."
"Tell me, human, why?" The human blinked, his gaze steady, unbroken by the queen's imposing presence. His mouth moved, but the words were slow to come. He did not speak immediately. The chamber fell silent, the alien courtiers whispering among themselves, voices like scraping metal. They had never seen one of their conquered species do this, never seen one that did not quake at the sight of her. Finally, the human spoke, his voice clear and measured. "I am afraid," he said. "I am afraid of losing everything I care about. But I have also learned that fear is not always weakness." The queen's eyes widened slightly. She had expected defiance, denial, or prayer, but not this. "Explain?" she demanded. The human's gaze did not waver. Fear has guided humans for millennia. It has taught us to survive when the odds are against us. We have faced plagues, floods, famines, and wars. Every time we thought we were finished, we adapted. We endured. Fear reminds us of what we must protect, and it has never stopped us from standing up when it matters most." They whispered nervously, many of them unable to believe the audacity of this human. "One general! A tall figure with spindly limbs and a translucent face," hissed at the queen. "She is defiant. She mocks us." The queen ignored him. Her interest was piqued. Humans were meant to be fragile, emotional, and predictable. They were supposed to beg for mercy or collapse under intimidation. And yet, this human stood calmly before her, unbroken. She leaned forward on her throne, her claws tapping the black obsidian in a rhythm that echoed through the chamber. "You speak of survival," she said slowly. "And yet your species has been weak for eons. You do not possess strength comparable to ours. Your weapons are primitive, your fleets laughable, and your worlds small and defenseless. How do you claim to survive against a power that could annihilate you in moments?" The human nodded slightly, acknowledging her point. "We are not the strongest," he admitted. "We are not the fastest, the largest, or the most advanced. But we have something you do not understand. We think, we learn, and we fight for each other. Every challenge, every disaster, every enemy has taught us something. We may fall, but we rise again, stronger and wiser." The queen studied him, intrigued despite herself. "And yet you do not flinch at my presence." "I do not," the human said simply, "because fear does not serve me here. If I fall to panic, I fail. If I fail, countless others suffer. I cannot allow myself that weakness. Fear must be recognized, but it must not control you. Humans have learned this through survival. It is the way we endure, even when the odds are stacked against us. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then the Queen's laughter echoed, a sound deep and resonant, but tinged with disbelief.
Your arrogance is astounding, human. You claim your fear is useful.
You claim your species endures because you are clever, and yet your technology is inferior, your fleets fragmented, your numbers small. You are fragile. Tell me, do you truly believe your words can protect you when my fleets arrive? The human's eyes did not waver. I do not believe my words protect me, he said. They guide me. I act not because I am fearless, but because fear alone will not save us. Courage does. And courage is more than the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. The Queen's gaze sharpened. She had conquered worlds, broken empires, and bent countless species to her will. Yet something about this human unsettled her. He did not rely on bluster, did not threaten, and did not plead. His strength was quiet, but undeniable. It was a strength born of history, struggle, and determination. A strength no weapon could destroy. One of her generals whispered, a tone of alarm in his voice. She does not fear you. Yet somehow, she does not bow either. It is unnatural.
It is disturbing. The Queen did not answer immediately.
She stood, her immense frame towering above the human, her multiple limbs flexing in curiosity and power. So you survive, she said finally. Your species survives by adapting, by enduring. You have been crushed before, and yet here you are, facing me. Tell me, does this not frighten you?
The human shook his head slightly.
It does. I am afraid every day. Afraid of failure, of loss, of what I cannot control. But I have learned that fear is a tool, not a chain. I use it to understand the danger, to plan, to act, and I trust that my people will act with me. Fear alone cannot stop us. It has never stopped humanity, and it will not stop me here. The Queen paused, her eyes narrowing. Never before had a species faced her directly, without crumbling, without begging, without surrendering. She had expected terror, and she had expected tears. Instead, she found focus, resolve, a quiet confidence that made her doubt her assumptions. She motioned to the guards. "Do not harm him," she said. "Not yet. Let us see if his words match his actions." The human inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement, but he remained standing, unmoving, watching the alien rulers around him with a calm alertness that was unsettling. It was not arrogance, not carelessness, but something different, a certainty forged in survival. The Queen's curiosity grew. "You speak of your history, your trials, your ability to endure. Yet humans have been conquered before. You have lost worlds, empires, leaders. How do you explain the persistence of your species when it seems the universe itself conspires against you?"
The human smiled faintly. "Because we do not rely on invincibility."
We rely on each other. Every time we fall, we help one another back up. Every time we are pushed to the brink, we find a way. Our survival is not a matter of strength alone, but of determination, creativity, and the refusal to surrender. We may be small, fragile, and seemingly weak, but we are resilient beyond measure. That is why I stand here today, and why humans will endure long after you believe them defeated. A low murmur spread through the chamber. Aliens glanced at one another, uncertain. Some frowned, others leaned in, trying to understand this human's words. The Queen herself felt a tension she had never experienced in centuries of conquest. The man's calmness, his clarity, his insistence on standing firm despite the threat before him. It was alien to them in every sense.
"You speak boldly, human," the queen said at last, her voice still carrying authority but tinged with curiosity and something else, something that resembled respect. "I have destroyed worlds for less insolence than this."
And yet, you do not falter. Why? The human finally answered fully. Because fear does not define me. Humans are not fearless. We feel fear, doubt, pain, and loss. But we do not allow these to decide our fate. We act, we survive, and we fight. That is our way. And now I face you, Queen, not without fear, but with purpose. I will not kneel, I will not break, and I will not allow the terror of your empire to control me. That is why I am not afraid. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. The Queen's many eyes studied him, searching for any sign of deception, weakness, or fear. But there was none. Just a human, standing, calm and unwavering. A single figure against an empire that had never known resistance like this. Finally, she leaned back, her long fingers tapping on the obsidian throne. "You are unusual, human," she said. "Perhaps too unusual. We will see if your species is truly as resilient as you claim. For now, live. But know this, every action you take from this moment will be watched, and the consequences will be yours to bear." The human nodded, understood, and every choice you make will be remembered, too. As he was escorted from the chamber, the murmurs of the alien court followed him. Some whispered in fear, some in disbelief, and some in fascination. The queen remained on her throne, silent, contemplating a species that defied every expectation. One thought burned in her mind as she watched him leave. Humans were not meant to be predictable, and that unpredictability might be the greatest weapon they possessed. Outside the chamber, the human breathed deeply. He had survived the first trial, but he knew the war was far from over. His calm was not the absence of fear, it was the presence of resolve. And humanity had learned long ago that resolve could bend even the universe itself. The human returned to his ship, its metal hull creaking under the weight of years of battle and repair. His crew waited silently, eyes fixed on him, as if he carried the outcome of an entire species on his shoulders. For a moment, he allowed himself a breath of relief, though it was shallow and brief. The Queen's chamber was behind him, but the war had only just begun. Reports were pouring in from Earth's defense networks. Alien fleets had begun aggressive patrols near the outer colonies, probing for weaknesses. Every planet under human control had fortified its defenses, but these were no ordinary attackers. The aliens were relentless, precise, and infinitely more experienced than any human army. Yet, humanity had something the invaders underestimated: unpredictability. The human gathered his officers. "They think fear will control us," he said, voice steady. "They think our weakness will make us surrender. They are wrong. Every time they strike, we adapt. Every time they pressure us, we respond. That is how humans survive."
A young officer, barely out of training, shook his head.
"But sir, they outnumber us."
Their fleets can destroy entire planets. How can we resist?
He looked at her, eyes burning with calm determination. "We resist not because we are stronger, but because we refuse to surrender. We fight smarter, not harder."
Fear is real. It is there in every moment, but it does not control us. That is what they cannot understand.
Meanwhile, on the alien capital, the Queen was restless. Her generals presented strategies, simulations, and predictions, yet nothing seemed to account for this anomaly called humanity.
"They are chaotic,"
one said.
"Their fleets are unorganized. Their defenses are primitive.
"We should crush them in hours."
And yet they stand. They endure. They adapt. There is something unusual about them. I do not know why, but I cannot dismiss their potential. Her curiosity grew into unease. Every report of human resistance showed unexpected tactics. Supply lines were attacked by ships that appeared out of nowhere, disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Colonies evacuated and rebuilt faster than the aliens could destroy them. Civilians joined militia groups, using knowledge of their worlds to outmaneuver superior technology. The aliens had never faced an enemy like this. Small, fragile, yet extraordinarily resourceful. Back on the human ship, the Envoy's crew worked tirelessly. Engineers patched engines with makeshift materials. Medics treated wounds with whatever was available, and pilots planned routes that no one had thought possible. Every member of the team understood the stakes, not just survival, but the survival of humanity itself. The human walked among them, observing. He saw exhaustion in their eyes, the toll of constant vigilance. But he also saw determination. "You are not afraid," he said quietly to one of the engineers. "Good. Use that focus. Fear will come and go, but your actions must remain clear. Humanity survives because we act, even when everything seems lost." Later, he convened a tactical meeting. Star maps projected in front of them, showing the alien fleet movements. Every strategy was debated, every risk calculated. And yet, even with careful planning, the odds were daunting. "We will be hit harder than ever," the humans said. "Their intent is clear. They want to make an example of us. But we have learned, through centuries of struggle, that we can survive anything. Their strength is immense, but it is predictable. Our strength is in our response, our unpredictability, our courage, our unity." Some skeptical, some inspired, but all listening. The humans' calm presence had a strange effect. It gave hope where numbers suggested despair. In the outer colonies, the first real clash occurred. Alien ships descended on a small mining planet, expecting resistance to collapse immediately. But human pilots were ready. Using improvised weapons in the planet's natural terrain, they launched a counterattack. Alien scouts were ambushed, supply convoys disabled, and the fleet commander reported confusion. Every move the humans made was unexpected, forcing the aliens to adapt on the fly, a concept they were unused to. Back at the capital, the Queen received the reports. "They are clever," she admitted to her council. "They are using fear and risk to their advantage, but in ways I did not anticipate. They are learning from us faster than we learn from them. They do not follow the patterns of survival we have studied. Every time I think I understand them, they surprise me." "They are only delaying the inevitable," one said. "They are human. They are weak. They cannot endure long." Perhaps you are underestimating what survival means. Humans survive not because they are invincible, but because they refuse to give up. They see fear as a challenge, not a cage, and that is something we cannot predict. Back on Earth, the human envoy coordinated defenses and counterattacks. His ship became a hub of strategy and communication. He studied alien behavior, noting patterns and weaknesses. Every small victory boosted morale. Every loss became a lesson. Humanity had lost worlds before, yet they adapted, and the lessons of history became tools in their current fight. One day, during a briefing, the young officer asked, "Sir, how can we keep facing them like this? They are so much stronger." "Don't you fear them?" The human smiled faintly.
"I do. Every day."
"But fear does not control me. Every species fears death, loss, failure. Humans learn to act anyway. That is how we endure. That is how we survive. You must remember, fear is not your enemy. It is your teacher." The officer thought for a moment, then nodded, understanding for the first time the mindset that had allowed humans to persist for millennia. It was not courage without fear. It was action in spite of it. Meanwhile, on the alien capital, the Queen convened her council again. Reports continued to be disturbing. Humans were not only surviving, they were thriving in adversity. Colonies that should have fallen were striking back with ingenuity and determination that defied logic. The Queen's curiosity deepened into fascination. "I underestimated them," she admitted. "I assumed that fear would break them. I assumed that weakness would define them. And yet, they endure. They adapt. They fight back in ways we cannot anticipate. There is something extraordinary about this species." "I must understand them better. Her generals were uneasy." They had always relied on their power and intimidation to control other species. They were masters of conquest, used to obedience. Humans defied both. Their unpredictability was a threat the Queen could not simply crush. The human envoy, unaware of the full effect he had on the Queen, continued his work. He coordinated resistance, inspired civilians, and ensured that every action had a purpose. He became more than a leader, he became a symbol. Humans looked to him, not for promises of safety, but for guidance in how to survive, how to endure, how to face a force greater than themselves and refuse to break. Reports of minor victories and successful evasions spread throughout human space. News of human ingenuity and courage bolstered morale, even on worlds that had not yet seen battle. Citizens took part in defense efforts, scientists accelerated weapon development, engineers repaired ships at impossible speeds. Every individual contributed, understanding that humanity's survival depended on collective action, on courage guided by knowledge, and on the refusal to surrender. The alien forces grew frustrated. They had not expected resistance on this scale. Every fleet that approached met unexpected obstacles. Every planetary assault faced improvisation that challenged their assumptions, and the human envoy's calm leadership was at the heart of it all. The Queen, observing from her capital, felt a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. "They are not fearless," she mused, "but their fear does not destroy them. It teaches them. It guides them. And that is why they continue even when all odds suggest they should fall." On one small moon, human engineers rigged a gravity trap that disrupted the alien fleet's formation. On another, civilians repurposed mining equipment into makeshift defenses that delayed invasion troops for hours. Every small act of defiance was magnified by coordination, creativity, and the shared determination that defined humanity. The human envoy stood among his people, watching them work tirelessly. He knew fear was present. He could feel it in every anxious glance, every cautious maneuver, but it did not dominate them. He realized that the alien empire, vast and powerful as it was, had never faced an opponent like this, a species that used fear as a compass, not a cage. A species that rose in response to threat, not collapse under it. As night fell on one distant colony, the human looked up at the stars, imagining the alien fleets moving against them, confident of their supremacy. And yet, he felt no despair. Humanity had survived worse. Humanity had faced extinction before. Humanity had learned to endure. He knew the coming battles would be brutal and losses would be high, but he also knew something the aliens did not. Survival was not about strength alone. It was about resilience, determination, and the courage to act despite fear. In the alien capital, the Queen could not shake the growing unease. The humans were resilient, unpredictable, and relentless. Every encounter, every report, every resistance movement challenged her expectations. For the first time in her long reign, she realized that her empire might be facing a species it could not fully control or predict. And somewhere in the middle of it all, the human envoy smiled quietly, knowing that fear would always exist, but it would never dictate humanity's fate. Humanity endured. Humanity fought, and humanity would survive, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The human envoy stood on the bridge of his ship, the view screen showing a vast swarm of alien vessels advancing through the darkness of space. Each ship gleamed with advanced technology, weapons bristling, engines glowing like molten metal. To most, the sight would inspire terror. But the envoy felt only the steady hum of focus. He had seen impossible odds before, and humanity had always found a way to endure. Reports came in from the front lines. Small human fleets had launched counterattacks that forced the aliens to reroute entire squadrons. Mining colonies turned into traps, civilian vessels became decoys, and planets that should have fallen quickly resisted with unexpected coordination. Each report brought a flicker of hope, though tempered with the knowledge of heavy losses. One officer approached, her voice tense.
Sir, they've deployed a new class of destroyers, heavily armed, fast, and shielded.
Our scouts report they are designed to counter everything we've used against them. The human nodded.
Then we learn again. Every attack teaches us something.
Every loss is a lesson. We adapt, we survive. Humanity has never relied on invincibility. We rely on action, courage, and ingenuity. That is what will see us through. Meanwhile, in the alien capital, the Queen pored over data reports. Each engagement with humans defied prediction. The aliens had planned every move with precision, yet humans continued to evade, counter, and improvise. Their tactics were unconventional, chaotic, yet effective. The Queen could not dismiss this any longer. They are more than resilient, she admitted to her council. Their fear does not destroy them, it guides them. Their survival depends not on strength, but on the ability to endure and act. And we cannot anticipate what they will do next.
A general bristled! They are human!
They are weak. Eventually, they will break.
The Queen's gaze hardened. Perhaps.
But their unpredictability is dangerous. Underestimating them has already cost us. Observe them closely. Learn from them. Understand them. Or be defeated by them. Back on Earth, the human envoy coordinated multiple simultaneous operations. Planetary defenses were strengthened, civilian evacuation plans executed, and supply routes adapted to avoid alien blockades. Every individual, from soldiers to ordinary civilians, contributed. Engineers turned raw materials into weapons. Pilots trained relentlessly, learning to anticipate the alien strategies even before the aliens themselves executed them. Humanity was fighting with what it had: brains, courage, and relentless determination. The envoy moved among his people, offering guidance and encouragement.
Do not let fear control you, he said quietly to a group of young recruits.
It will come, yes, but you must let it teach you, not bind you. Every choice you make is your strength. Humanity has survived the impossible before, and we will survive it again. As the weeks passed, alien attacks intensified. The invaders unleashed entire squadrons on key human colonies, expecting swift victories. Yet, each assault was met with resistance that defied logic. Civilians organized sabotage missions, striking critical points in enemy supply chains. Pilots coordinated attacks that used speed, terrain, and improvisation to destroy larger, more powerful ships. Each human success, no matter how small, forced the aliens to rethink their strategies, creating confusion in what should have been an orderly campaign. One battle, near a dense asteroid field, became legendary. A small human fleet, vastly outnumbered, lured the alien destroyers into the field. Using asteroid debris and quick maneuvers, they disabled the alien weapons systems, crippling half the fleet. Survivors of the battle recounted how humans fought with ingenuity and courage, never yielding, even when their own ships were falling. Reports reached the Queen. She watched the battle unfold through surveillance feeds, her eyes narrowing as she realized something critical. The humans did not fight like other species. They did not rely on overwhelming strength, numbers, or fear to compel action. They relied on creativity, resilience, and determination. Every attack, every defense, Every maneuver reflected not just strategy, but a profound understanding of survival. She summoned the human envoy through an emergency holographic link, her image towering in the room. "Human," she said, her voice sharper than usual. "Your species continues to resist. Your fleets are clever, your defenses effective. Yet you are still weak in comparison to my empire. Tell me, how do you endure so consistently when all reason suggests you should fall?" The human looked directly at the queen's image, calm and measured. "Because we do not survive by strength alone. Every loss teaches us. Every fear guides us. We endure because we act, even when everything seems impossible. You underestimate what resilience and determination can achieve." The queen's eyes narrowed. She had faced species that feared her, species that worshipped her, species that plotted endless schemes, and all had eventually succumbed. But these humans were different. They did not worship. They did not beg. They did not collapse. They learned, they adapted, they acted. And that action had cost her empire more than any she had ever faced before. She leaned back, considering the envoy's words. "Perhaps your species is unusual," she admitted. "Perhaps I have underestimated you. Yet survival alone does not make you powerful. Eventually, you will falter."
Perhaps, the human replied.
But until that moment, we will fight. And we will survive.
That is what humans have always done. We do not need invincibility to endure. We need courage, knowledge, and the will to act. That is our strength. The queen was silent, the weight of his words pressing against centuries of conquest. She had always assumed that fear was absolute, that the weak could be controlled, and that strength was measured in size, firepower, and fleets. Humans had turned all of that on its head. Fear did not immobilize them. Weakness did not define them. They survived because they understood that survival was a choice, a commitment, a refusal to yield even in the face of impossible odds. Back on the front lines, the human envoy prepared for the largest engagement yet. Alien fleets converged on multiple human colonies simultaneously, intending to crush resistance with sheer numbers. But the humans were ready. Communication networks allowed coordinated defense. Pilots used every advantage of terrain, weather, and equipment. Civilians supported efforts in ways the aliens could not anticipate. Every action reflected humanity's central principle: adaptability. In one desperate battle, a group of human pilots faced a squadron of alien destroyers. Outnumbered 3-1, they executed a plan no alien strategist would predict, using the gravity wells of a nearby star. They maneuvered in patterns that disabled enemy targeting systems, then struck key points with precision. Several destroyers were destroyed, and the survivors fled, stunned by the humans' audacity and skill. The Queen's advisors were panicked. "They are not supposed to be able to do this," one said. "They are humans. Weak. Inefficient. How can they fight like this?" The Queen's gaze was hard, contemplative. "They survive because they refuse to be defined by weakness. They act despite fear. They endure despite loss. And that is why they continue to resist." "I must understand this, or lose control of everything I have built." In a quieter moment, the human envoy reflected on the cost of these battles. Human lives were lost every day, and yet the resolve never faltered. The bravery of ordinary people, civilians risking everything for their families, engineers improvising to keep ships alive, soldiers fighting against overwhelming odds. It was all part of the same force that had allowed humans to survive for millennia. Fear was real, pain was real, yet action and courage persisted. He knew the war was far from over. The aliens would adapt, strike harder, and push humanity to its limits. But he also knew this truth: humanity was not defeated by fear, by loss, or by overwhelming power. Humans endured because they chose to act, even when everything seemed impossible. That choice was their weapon. That choice was their power. Meanwhile, the Queen observed from her capital. She had faced species that feared her, species that plotted endlessly, species that surrendered under pressure. But humans were different. They defied expectation, adapted rapidly, and fought with ingenuity and courage. Every engagement reminded her that survival was not always a matter of strength or firepower. Sometimes it was a matter of will, of understanding fear and using it as fuel rather than a chain. The envoy prepared his forces for another engagement. Messages were sent to colonies. Pilots briefed. Civilians prepared to assist. Every human understood that survival required not just action, but unity. Fear was present, but it did not dominate. Courage guided every maneuver, every decision, every sacrifice. And somewhere in the alien capital, the Queen acknowledged a truth she had never faced before. Humans were terrifying, not because they were invincible, but because they refused to be controlled, broken, or defeated. Their courage, their ingenuity, their endurance, it was unlike anything she had encountered. The human envoy, looking out at the endless darkness of space, felt the weight of responsibility but not despair. Humanity had survived the impossible before. They had endured disasters, plagues, wars, and betrayals. They had learned from every challenge and grown stronger for it. And they would endure this, too. As the alien fleets advanced once more, the human envoy stood firm. Fear existed, yes, but it did not dictate action. Humanity had chosen its path, and that path was forward. The Queen would soon realize that survival was not just about strength. Survival was about resilience, courage, and the decision to act despite every impossible odds. And that, he knew, was something no alien power could ever fully control or predict. The alien fleets hung over the human colonies like dark clouds, their weapons bristling and engines glowing ominously. Every planet, every city, every starport seemed to shiver under the looming threat. To most, the situation appeared hopeless. Entire civilizations had fallen under the Queen's wrath before. And yet, humans did not tremble. They prepared. They acted. The human envoy stood on the bridge of his command ship, eyes scanning the fleet deployments. Reports streamed in from every colony. Civilians had fortified key positions. Engineers had modified weapons to exploit weaknesses in alien shields, and pilots had trained for maneuvers that seemed impossible. Every person, soldier and civilian alike, knew that survival depended on courage, ingenuity, and unity. A young officer approached, her face pale but determined.
Sir, they're massing at the Outer Rim. They're preparing a full strike across all colonies simultaneously.
If we cannot hold them, Earth itself will be threatened. The envoy nodded. Then we make our stand. Remember, fear will come. That is natural. But it will not control you. Every decision you make matters. Humanity survives not because we are stronger, but because we act. Every battle is another lesson. Every loss is another chance to learn. The humans executed their plan with precision. Small fleets drew alien forces into ambushes among asteroid fields. Evacuated cities became traps, their streets rigged to funnel enemy troops into kill zones. Communication networks allowed human forces across dozens of worlds to coordinate attacks simultaneously, striking faster than the aliens could react. Every maneuver reflected creativity, unpredictability, and courage, the hallmarks of humanity's survival instinct. Meanwhile, the Queen watched the campaign from her capital. She had expected humans to crumble long before now. Yet reports of victory, resistance, and adaptation poured in relentlessly. The humans did not fear her. They respected her power, yes, but they acted despite it. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless. Her advisors argued constantly.
They are only delaying the inevitable, one said. Our fleets are larger.
Our weapons are stronger. They cannot endure.
The Queen's eyes were hard, but thoughtful. They survive not because they're invincible. They survive because they refuse to surrender. Their fear guides them, but it does not control them. That is why they endure. On one beleaguered colony, a massive engagement erupted. Alien destroyers rained fire on human defensive positions. Civilians worked alongside soldiers to repair fortifications, reroute power, and deploy makeshift defenses. Human pilots executed daring maneuvers, exploiting the environment in ways the aliens could not anticipate. A single group of fighters, outnumbered 5-1, disabled multiple capital ships using decoys and precise strikes. The human envoy coordinated from orbit, monitoring every battle in real time. Focus on their weaknesses, he instructed. Do not fight where they expect us to. Act where they cannot anticipate. Adapt. Endure. Every decision counts. The Queen, observing from her throne, finally summoned the human envoy through a direct holographic link. This calm image appeared, framed by the chaos of human preparation. You continue to resist, she said, her voice measured but edged with frustration. But your species faces annihilation, yet you act with courage. Explain yourself. The human met her gaze evenly. We do not act because we are fearless. We act because we have no choice. Every human knows fear, knows loss, knows the possibility of death. But we move forward anyway. That is what has allowed our species to survive through plagues, wars, and disasters. Fear does not bind us, it teaches us. And we use that knowledge to endure, to act, and to fight. The Queen's eyes narrowed. She had conquered countless species, each broken by fear or despair, and yet humans were different. They used fear as a tool, as a guide, and they did not let it define them. Every engagement, every victory, every stubborn defense demonstrated a will she had never encountered before. The final battle began. Alien fleets surged toward Earth itself, intending to crush humanity decisively. But humans were ready. Fleet formations were coordinated, traps laid, and strategies executed with ruthless precision. Civilians piloted vessels and operated defense systems, contributing to a planetary-scale operation that utilized every resource, every mind, every ounce of courage.
The human envoy directed forces from orbit. Hold your ground.
Adapt. Do not surrender. Fear is natural, but it is not our master. Humanity survives because we act.
Act now!
The aliens pressed forward, expecting easy victories. Their capital ships unleashed volleys of energy that would have devastated ordinary worlds. But humans used every trick at their disposal. Gravity wells, decoys, improvised shields, and unconventional tactics. Each attack that should have broken them instead became a lesson in adaptation, making the humans even more dangerous. The Queen realized at last that her assumptions had been flawed. Humans were not defined by weakness, not ruled by fear, and not defeated by power. They endured because they chose to act despite overwhelming odds. She watched as humans turned the tide, even in moments when defeat seemed inevitable. Their courage, ingenuity, and resolve were beyond what she had imagined. The envoy's fleet pressed the attack. Alien ships faltered under unpredictable maneuvers and unexpected tactics. Human pilots exploited weaknesses in shields and engines, striking critical points with devastating effect. Colonies counterattacked, reclaiming territory that had seemed lost. Every victory reinforced the truth the Queen could not deny. Humans were formidable not because of size, strength, or weapons, but because of their indomitable will. Finally, the Queen's voice rang out across the holographic link, quieter than before. Human, you have taught me something I did not expect. Your species refuses to break? Your fear does not destroy you. It strengthens you. I underestimated you.
The human nodded.
Fear is not our enemy. We use it to guide us. That is why humans endure. The Queen fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. She had conquered empires, bent species to her will, and yet she had never faced a force like this, a species whose strength lay in resolve, courage, and the refusal to surrender. As the battle reached its climax, the alien forces began to falter. Ships retreated, formations collapsed, and communication lines became confused. Humans pressed forward with unity and precision, exploiting every weakness. The envoy coordinated the final phases, ensuring that every effort, every sacrifice, every human action contributed to a decisive outcome. On the bridge of his ship, he looked at the stars, knowing the cost had been high. Lives were lost, worlds scarred, but humanity had endured. Fear had been present at every step, but it had not defeated them. Humans had acted despite it, and that action had shaped the future. The Queen's holographic image appeared once more, her expression unreadable. I admit, I misjudged your species. You are not only resilient, but dangerous, in ways I cannot fully predict. You have survived against overwhelming odds, and for that I must acknowledge your strength. The human bowed his head slightly. Bed. Strength comes not from fearlessness, but from the choice to act despite fear. That is humanity's way. The Queen studied him, her many eyes reflecting something unfamiliar. Respect, perhaps even awe. Your species has forced me to reconsider what I know about survival, about courage, about power. You endure where others would fall.
You are remarkable.
And with that acknowledgement, the war reached an uneasy ceasefire. Alien fleets withdrew to regroup, but the lesson was clear. Humanity could not be conquered through fear, weakness, or intimidation. Humans survived because they chose to act, because they adapted, because they refused to surrender. On Earth and its colonies, the people celebrated quietly. Victory had been hard won, lives had been lost, but humanity had endured. Engineers repaired, scientists developed, and civilians rebuilt. They had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, not because they were invincible, but because they had refused to give in to fear. The human envoy looked out at the planets under his care, thinking of the courage, ingenuity, and determination of every person who had fought. They had survived impossible odds, and they had done it together. Their victory was not just military, it was a testament to the human spirit. Back in the alien capital, the Queen could not shake the lesson she had learned. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and unyielding. They had survived because they refused to surrender, because they used fear as a guide instead of a chain. And that, she realized, was a force no empire could ever fully control. The human envoy, standing among his people, finally allowed himself a moment of reflection. Fear had been present, loss had been felt, and the cost had been high. Yet humanity had endured. They had acted, adapted, and survived. That was the essence of their species, the choice to move forward despite every impossible challenge. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the alien Queen, watching the aftermath, understood something she had never known. Humans were terrifying, not because they could not be destroyed, but because they refused to allow fear, weakness, or despair to dictate their fate. Their courage, their ingenuity, their will to act, that was their true power. For the first time in her long reign, the Queen was left breathless, not by weapons, not by fleets, but by the indomitable spirit of a single species. Humanity had survived, and the lesson they taught would echo across the stars. To endure, to act, to survive. Fear is inevitable, but courage defines destiny. The human envoy turned to his crew, to the people of Earth and its colonies, and said quietly, yet with conviction, "But we act anyway. That is why we survive. That is why we endure. That is why we are human. And the universe, vast and indifferent, seemed to pause, acknowledging a truth that no alien empire could ever fully conquer. Humanity would endure, no matter the odds, no matter the fear, and no matter the darkness that loomed across the stars.